types of civilizations and cultures and some who are way beyond that. The slides that you're looking at now, these are life forms from here. This is life from the ocean. Now tell me, if that's not strange, you know, how can we kind of look at what's out there and say, gosh, it just doesn't fit into my paradigm of reality? I mean, we have all different types of life. And as I'm going to hit in on a little bit, is that it's all sentient, and what I've learned, it's all conscious. Because as I've learned through my contacts with extraterrestrials, they also opened up my capacity to communicate with the animal world and to realize how sophisticated they are and what they have going on. So as we look at life and surround us, we can't really say that this is really that much more strange. Now, I think we need to talk a little bit about their communication and what they have to say, because this is really important. What I want to do is I want to give you some of the benefit of the wisdom that I've gained from working with a lot of different races. You know, I think there's a joke in the universe. You know, it's kind of like, how does the chicken cross the road? How do you get a human to do anything? The answer is, play to his ego. Tell him he's special, he's an ambassador, we'll give him any appointment he wants, they'll do anything we want. And this is so true. You've so often seen people who've been so enamored of having, whether it's a channeled situation or they've had a contact face-to-face situation, and they get some information and they go running out, you know, they want to be on a talk radio show, they want to be in the media, and we're going to have contact on 3 p.m. on August 12th. It'll be a media going by, and if you look really hard, you'll see them. Over and over again. Never happens. And so what I have found, whether we like it or not, is I feel that there's almost like a fraternity hazing that goes on with some of us who have this type of situation. Because when you find you don't necessarily fall into that, and you question what's going on, and you try to wake up your cognitive processing as you're in this sometimes fugue state as you're with them, they give you respect when you act a little differently and you show you're independent and you don't necessarily fall in line. In my situation, what I encountered was all of a sudden I began to receive some very advanced teachings about life, reality, humans, what I call the wisdom track, and I felt very privileged to be able to get that. So when you have the privilege of having an extraterrestrial encounter experience, what I want you to know is that you can often fall into a type of fugue state, and it's like your soul mind is coming on and becoming active, but you need to keep that intellectual process open and keep your cognitive mind on and question and not just accept things as they come to you. And that's going to really make a difference. You know, think about it. It's like when we work with, our researchers work with gorillas, and you've heard of Coco, the famous signing gorilla. You know, if you walk in, you're starting to work with Coco, and all of a sudden, she doesn't just say red ball, she says, I want carrot cake for dinner. You're going to go, whoa, I can go to a whole new level with this being. And you can teach her in a more sophisticated level. And really, folks, that's what it's like sometimes with us, is that when you go to a new level, they do too. Okay, what I want to do is share with you some of the messages that they often bring, because now I've told you to question their messages, but what are some of the ones that they can share? You hear from everybody who's had contact. They'll talk a lot of times about environmental concern. Sometimes they'll have very personal messages for people. Excuse me. But one of the things that happened to me after over 5 decades of contact is when I was in my 40s, I had a very, very profound and very different visit that changed my life. And it was 1 week after what many of you here may know as the Phoenix Lights that happened on March 13th, 1997. I live in Phoenix, and I really didn't pay any attention to them, even though they happened over my house. But I had a contact visit a week later where they made reference to that. And they let me know that they had been there. But what they had is, I'm going to distill it down. It was a very profound, very long visit, but I'm going to distill it down to 3 particular messages, knowing that they have entrained me to understand that the future is nothing more than a probability. The future is mutable, and they have helped me to understand, and this is so important for all of us, that the future can be whatever we will it and want it to be. And that's why we have to be so much, behave so differently and become empowered. They talked about 3 things. They did talk about that there was going to be what they called a triune setting. That at some point in the future, and I got to stop and tell you, this drives me nuts, because the future, what, next Thursday, 3012? Time is different to them. They never really pin it down. But at some time in the future, that there was going to be what they referred to as a portal opening that would have great significance for us. Now, I don't really, get very involved in the 2012 phenomenon. I'm very involved in today and just moving forward. But I wonder, because there's such a great astrological configuration happening on that date that everybody's talking about, if that's what they were referring to. But some point, they said this really does have significance, because it's an opening in and out of our galaxy and our particular place in the universe that has meaning. And it doesn't happen but very rarely, probably thousands and thousands of years. They also made reference to that in our time, there was supposed to be the discovery of records that would reveal a very different history on our planet. And they showed me pictures of what I thought were the Egyptian pyramids and the Sphinx in that area. And they said that when these are revealed, there will be no refuting the history of the extraterrestrial legacy. I can't imagine what would be on it, because you can refute anything and just say that it's myth and story and culture. But they said that there was something there. I'll tell you, since that happened over 10 years ago and that particular visit happened, I also now wonder something very differently about this. And I wonder if actually this may not be Egypt, but it may actually be a part of the ancient Atlantean lands that are down by Bermuda and Florida, being able to rise up and have some of these monoliths on them. It's just a thought that I've had. The third thing they said is something that they don't want to have happen. And at that time, they were very, very concerned about a nuclear detonation going off in what seemed to be the Middle East region. So far, 10, 12 years later, we're doing good. It hasn't gone off. But what they said was that it's going to be a very naive situation should the nuclear detonation take place, because that there's a major fault line. And if it does, it's going to trigger this, and therefore it's going to affect the quality of life for everyone on your planet, and it won't be contained to a particular singular region like you saw when you detonated the bomb before. So these are the nature of some of the messages and some of the things that they can tell you and share with you. Now, I'm saying this because, are these true? I don't know. I find them fascinating, I find them interesting, and I'm very proud that I've had the privilege to hear them from them. But I also know that it doesn't mean that any of them are necessarily going to happen, that they're potentials for our future that can have greater bearing on us and what comes to fall for us. The other thing they shared, and I know I'm going fast, but I only have so much time, and so I'll be available later to go into greater depth to all these things, is that they told me about our past in a very different way. And what they did is they said that, yeah, you were a genetically altered species. And I learned about this way before any of this came out into the New Age culture. They said that it's a little different than you think, though. They taught me about Zecharia Sitchin, who many of you have heard of, before I was even aware of who the man was. And they told me to go explore his work, because they said he's very close to what it was. And they said, after I explored it, that you're a hybrid race, but it's not just that you had this Anunnaki coming here who created you. They said what it is you're actually a mixture of 12 genetic strains of what we would call extraterrestrial DNA. And that when the life form was tinkered with, it wasn't one culture or life form overlaying its presence, it was a genetic mixture. And they went into some very interesting details about it with the science that was used, where what I call harmonic or sonic resonance was used to, this may sound like total meta poop, I know, because I have a scientific background, but it's interesting, so I'm going to share it. And they said that a sonic resonance, they used actually sound frequency when they were doing the genetic tinkering to get the strains to gel and to work with each other. So what all this does is it allows us to look at what we know